Welcome to a story that feels like silk brushed against the heart, where royalty meets romance, and every word glows with the warmth of Sheikh Hamdan's soul. This isn't just about a prince who writes, it's about a man whose pen carries the scent of the desert, whose verses have built bridges between power and poetry. When Sheikh Hamdan speaks of love, it feels as if even the stars bend closer, eager to listen. His words are not crafted, they are born from a heart that has seen kingdoms, yet still finds wonder in a single smile. The world calls him Fazza, but to the heart of poetry, he is something else, a rhythm, a heartbeat, a whisper that refuses to fade. He doesn't just write for attention, he writes because silence becomes too heavy to hold. Every poem he pens feels like a prayer, wrapped in the fragrance of devotion. His words don't demand to be understood, they ask to be felt. That is why millions find themselves lost in his lines, as if each verse holds the key to a love they've long forgotten. When Sheikh Hamdan writes of her, the mysterious muse who dances through his stanzas, the world pauses. The desert winds hush, the moonlight leans closer, and time itself lingers to listen. There is no crown, no title, no throne that defines his tenderness. Instead, it is the simplicity of his truth that reigns supreme. He doesn't chase grandeur in love, he celebrates the quiet moments, the glances that say more than words, the promises made in silence, the kind of love that doesn't need to be declared because it already exists in the soul. In his poetry, one finds both the prince and the poet, one who rules nations and hearts alike. His verses are where loyalty meets longing, where the rhythm of Dubai's heartbeat intertwines with the soft music of affection. He speaks of love not as a possession but as a purpose, not as something to boast of, but something to protect. And that is what makes him unforgettable. His kingdom isn't only built of marble and gold, it is made of metaphors, of unspoken dreams, and words that echo in eternity. Every time he recites a verse, there's an invisible hush that falls across the audience. People don't simply listen, they feel. It's as if his voice holds the power to awaken something long buried, that hidden tenderness humanity often forgets in its rush for glory. His poetry reminds the world that even power bows before love, that even in a life surrounded by grandeur, a single word whispered from the heart can outshine all jewels. There's magic in the way Sheikh Hamdan speaks of love. It's not exaggerated, nor is it fragile. It's fierce, yet soft. It's the kind of love that holds its breath when she walks by, not because she's perfect, but because she feels like home. His poems carry her shadow, not in a way that chains her, but in a way that immortalizes her. Every letter he writes seems to trace her outline in air, like the wind itself has learned her name. He writes of eyes that speak more than empires, of laughter that outshines the sunrise, of a bond so deep it defies logic. His love is not a tale of longing alone, it's a celebration of connection. In every line, he paints her as both muse and miracle, not as someone who completes him, but as someone who inspires him to become more. She is not the reason he writes, she is the reason his soul breathes. What makes Sheikh Hamdan's words melt millions is their honesty. He never hides behind royal language or elaborate metaphors. He writes as a man who feels deeply, loves fiercely, and believes that vulnerability is not weakness but strength. Each poem is an open door to his soul, raw, luminous, and real. People read his verses and see themselves reflected in them. They find comfort, hope, and the reminder that love, true love, still exists. Even the way he blends tradition with tenderness is poetic in itself. In his world, the desert becomes a witness, the falcon becomes a messenger, and the moon becomes a confidant. Through these symbols, he weaves a timeless connection between his heritage and his heart. His poetry reminds us that even amidst modernity, there is room.
There are moments when Sheikh Hamdan's silence speaks louder than any verse he could ever write. It's in those still seconds, when his gaze softens toward the horizon, when his thoughts drift into the golden sands, that his poetry breathes. You can almost feel the weight of emotion hidden behind his calm demeanor, like an ocean quietly holding storms beneath its surface. His followers sense it too. They know that when he finally shares another piece of his heart, it won't just be a poem, it will be a revelation. Sometimes his words arrive like whispers, sometimes like thunder. He writes not for the applause, but for the ache, for the feeling of being human in a world that often forgets how to feel. His verses are not about luxury or grandeur. They're about the simplicity of connection, a glance, a memory, a heartbeat. That's what makes his poetry universal. It doesn't belong only to Dubai's royal palaces. It belongs to every soul that has ever loved in silence, every heart that has ever waited, and every dream that refused to fade. There is a tenderness in the way he writes about destiny, not as something to be controlled, but as something to be trusted. If love is written in the stars, he once wrote, then even the night will carry her name. Those words traveled farther than he imagined, crossing oceans, languages, and hearts. Because in a single line, he reminded the world that love doesn't ask for logic, it simply asks to be felt. And that's why millions wait for each poem like a message from the divine, because his words don't just describe love, they restore it. When he speaks about her, the one who lives between his verses, there's always a trace of reverence, as if he's protecting her with poetry. He never reveals her name, but every word he writes carries her essence, her laughter in the rhythm, her gentleness in the tone, her mystery in the pauses. She isn't a fantasy, she's a reflection of something real, something eternal. Perhaps that's what makes his poetry so magnetic, the balance of royal restraint and human vulnerability. As the world continues to spin, millions wait for his next verse, the next glimpse into his heart. Because somewhere in those golden lines lies the hope that love, pure, patient, eternal, still survives. Sheikh Hamdan doesn't just write poetry, he gives people faith in love again. His words are proof that even kings fall, not from grace, but into love. He built palaces of poetry in her honor, verses drenched with devotion, each word shimmering like a jewel forged by feeling. He didn't write to impress her, and sir, the story continues, of a royal heart that beats like every other, of a poet who found eternity in emotion, of a man whose legacy will not just be written in history, but etched in the hearts of those who still believe in love.